It's been a year that would have aged anybody. But in looking back at the first 12 months of the age of Obama, we confront a unique challenge. Which Obama are we talking about? The sober leader who, according to his administration, saved the global economy, introduced historic healthcare reform, and kept Americans safe from terrorism? Or the frothing socialist Obama, as portrayed on Fox News every night, whose healthcare reform is a Soviet-style government takeover and whose liberal agenda is a threat to liberty itself? Or are we talking about Obama, the disappointer-in-chief, who promised change you can believe in for a broken system and then promptly handed Wall Street the keys to the Treasury and doubled down on imperial wars? Some of these portraits are supported by facts, others are pure fantasy. But what they share is this. When you have the Obama conversation, the primary discussion of the past year in the United States, you hold up a mirror to the country itself, its factions, its fundamental debates, its fault lines.
There's a relief that Bush is gone. And that's about 80% of what people are happy about.
But we did not come here just to clean up crises.
Here comes a man who seemed full of integrity, who seemed full of hope and change that you could believe in, and certainly had ideas that really resonated with a lot of the American public. That's why he got into office.
Bold and decisive action.
President Obama is a classic American intellectual liberal.
That is our ultimate goal.
That is to say, he's been extremely well schooled, but he doesn't understand America at all.
And I will not let up.
Well, maybe this is going to be like a national IQ test, or at least an IQ test for liberals.
We came here to build a future.
To see how long your faith can withstand the tidal wave of evidence.
I can stand here with confidence.
This guy was a great talker and a great campaigner and seemed like a really competent person who people felt great about voting for, and electing a first black president is a moving, awesome thing for the country, and it created this sense of real romance around the election, but I don't know that it changed the country to elect Barack Obama.
We are the ones we've been waiting for.
To take a snapshot of Obama at 1 year, reflected in the eyes of those who watch him closely. See you again, Mr. Army. Avi Lewis. We talked to a range of American politicians, writers, and commentators. Thank you.
Well, this man is a very nuanced thinker. You know, he's very complex in his thinking. What you end up with is something you might not personally agree with, but you know that that man has given it some serious thought and consideration.
He's ceremonially well endowed, and he looks good walking, and he can win elections. But the fact of the matter is he substantively is incapable of doing the job, and the country is learning that.
He strikes me as pure persona. I think I referred to him like a couple months after I met him at the end of 1995 as a neoliberal confection. I mean, it's all crafted.
Who really didn't know who he was, so he mastered the art of external pleasing. Showing the mirror that people wanted to see in every different context, but being protean, like a chameleon, where he could make everyone feel like he agreed with them or like he understood them.
When you're a candidate, your whole job is to get more people to like you. Your policies can remain fuzzy. When you're a president, it's about the decisions you make, and there's no shortage of scrutiny.
Good morning, everybody.
We've learned that he has some blind spots and that we didn't see during the campaign. And I think one of the blind spots is he had an incredible amount of confidence that he could bring conflict right up to his desk and manage it, ultimately be the decider, but in contrast to the Bush administration, have every view in front of him and manage it. That might work when you've got no timeline and you don't have a gusher of crises hitting your desk every day. But I think he's been overwhelmed.
What would you take out of that agenda? That's one question to ask. Would you take out the economic stimulus? I don't think so. Some people might take out health care. I don't think most Americans would. And you can kind of go down the list that way. Is it a full plate? It is indeed. Can he handle it all? I don't know.
he's always trying to look for a way to work things out. And I think that's a good trait.
Now is when we must bring the best ideas of both parties together and show the American people that we can still do what we were sent here to do.
However, when you're up against corporations who have never had their feathered nest disturbed, and you pick out a feather, they may do everything they can to resist.
At the same time, the people who elected him were looking for, I think, a more progressive and proactive FDR style of governing, given the set of circumstances that we find ourselves in. And so I think that he has managed to disappoint almost everyone.
But when you govern, you have to do tangible things, and you have to make enemies. He seems very averse to conflict. He's been embarrassed several times by a Republican Party where he's reached across the aisle and they've walked away, rejected his hand, and then given him no votes.
So the Pointer Sisters, bless their little hearts, they came up with a perfect song for Barack Obama. Mr. Big Shot, who do you think you are? Riding around in your big old car.
The clearest example of Obama's aversion to conflict is healthcare reform. Trying to neutralize the opposition of the big healthcare industries, he cut a series of secret deals before the legislative process even began. Trying to avoid conflict with conservatives in his own party, he paid lip service to the idea of a public insurance option, but he never spent political capital on pushing it through.
We can no longer let the perfect be the enemy of the essential.
His position has been very supportive of not disturbing the arrangements which insurance companies have. He's been consistent in that.
So, is Obamacare a realist compromise or a watered-down sellout?
I'm not the first president to take up this cause, but I am determined to be the last.
First of all, I should say this, that he has gotten farther than any other president in the history of this country on healthcare reform. And for that, he should be hugely applauded. We'll hold the applause until it's actually done.
Obama's approach is to do something that other presidents haven't done. I'm not getting involved. I want health reform, you figure it out, I'll come in at the end. And it's been infuriating for everybody who wants health reform. And it's been infuriating for those who are against it, because they want him to be the target to go after, because for them, this is a whole surrogate fight against him anyway. And he's not doing it, and he's not doing it, and he's not doing it. And although it's been a very depressing process, he might end up getting health reform.
It's almost as if he wants to be a good guy and compromise rather than engage in bargaining strategy, where he comes out and says, the only thing that works, and it works all over the world, and it's half the price of the United States, and it's twice as good quality, is single payer. And then he ends up with some compromise. Instead, he goes right to the compromise, and the other side doesn't come right to it with him. They keep playing tug of war.
It's not true. Change has come to America.
So what happened to the Obama who was going to change a broken system? Has he changed instead? Or was he never really the right candidate for that huge challenge? The answer may lie not with Obama, but with the people who voted for him. It was a cliche in the campaign. It is clearly true today. Many voters projected on Obama what they wanted him to be.
A deep analysis of the Obama presidency requires one to be realistic, requires one to see where candidate Obama actually stood on the issues.
The things that people are most angry about are things that they assumed he'd do because they assumed he was a liberal. And he didn't run as a liberal. And I think he ran as a sort of Clintonian center-right Democrat. And I think that's how he's governing.
So you weren't surprised?
No. I've been asked all year long, are you disappointed, are you disappointed, are you disappointed? And my answer to that is that I am disappointed that we're not getting the best policies for the country, but I'm not disappointed in the president because I didn't expect him to be a different person than this.
It's a pretty straightforward thing in politics, right? You've got an electoral coalition that puts you in office, and you have a governing coalition. And the two don't necessarily connect at all, and where Left of center institutions with some constituent capacity, like the labor movement or the public interest lobby, were able to produce votes, they were never in a position to influence policy.
Since healthcare represents 1/6 of our economy, I believe it makes more sense to build on what works and fix what doesn't, rather than try to build an entirely new system from scratch.
The administration likes to talk about governing as the art of the possible, achieving in policy what the politics will allow. But this pragmatic approach could have political blowback in future elections. Pragmatic compromise you can believe in is hardly an inspiring campaign slogan.
One of the things that was key to Barack Obama's victory was broadening the pie of participation in the American electorate, bringing many people from ethnic communities, the youth community, who would not normally participate, and overwhelming the status quo electoral system.
And then to experience a huge letdown in terms of the nature of the policy proposals that have been set forth could very much turn these people off of the political process for a generation or more.
And nothing does that more than the bailout of Wall Street and record-smashing profits while unemployment spikes and foreclosures pile up. Now, Obama isn't shy about using populist rhetoric in standing up to the banks.
This time, CEOs won't be able to use taxpayer money to pad their paychecks or buy fancy drapes or disappear on a private jet. Those days are over.
But when it comes to action, the president has been missing.
The Obama administration approach to that is to bring all the bankers in. Bring all the bankers to the White House, say, you know what, you guys have been, you've had a little trouble. The American people are a little upset with the whole burning the economy to the ground thing. And you taking those bonuses is a little, so will you guys support regulatory reform? And the CEOs go, oh yes, oh yes. But our lobbyists won't. It's good for them. It looks like they're cooperating. The optics of it are great for these interests.
Good afternoon, everybody.
But then they're not actually behaving any differently because there's no stick that goes along with the carrot.
Now we're trying to cheerlead, cajole, and we've got very little influence. We haven't cleaned up the banks. We've resuscitated the Wall Street financial sector, and we don't have jobs back.
And the question is, are they independent enough to be tough on Wall Street? We don't know the answer to that yet. It's a big-time fight.
So what you could say is this is a man who didn't have the spine to stand up and really roll the dice when he had to take some risks.
No one could expect the President of the United States, a new president, to come in and change everything like that.
Thank you very much, everybody.
But neither do people expect more war and more poverty and more control by Wall Street. The president is going to have to get America back to work. And he will inevitably have to get out of Iraq and get out of Afghanistan and Pakistan, inevitably. The question is, will he be able to do it in his first term? And will he have a second term if he doesn't?
So I told my husband, we're making this, it's a 300-mile trip, round trip for us. He said, you're going to stand out there at 5 in the morning? I said, yeah, we were here at 4:30.
Christmas shopping is in full swing at the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota. Barack Obama's first anniversary as president is around the corner. But the thousands of people waiting in line here aren't misty with nostalgia for Obama mania. They're impatient to get their books signed by Sarah Palin.
How you guys doing?
Good.
All right, so what's up with Sarah Palin? You guys have been here for hours.
Yes, and it's totally worth it.
It's a picture of how far and how fast the center of political excitement in this country has shifted. Taking the measure of the new president in this crowd, certain themes come up again and again.
I think we're moving way too far. He moves in a socialistic manner, and I think that we believe in free enterprise in our country. That's why we have so many people here today.
And when you start to change to a socialist gun country, it hasn't worked for anybody. It never will. So it's a bad idea.
Where in his policies or what he's done do you see the threat of socialism?
Taxing the rich to give to the poor, I don't really think that's...
Isn't that kind of a Jesus-type principle?
Well, that probably might be true. But my gosh, you know, it's the rich right now that are really keeping the world going.
That group of people are disdainful of passports, disdainful of international engagement. This pugnacious right, which is hijacking the Republican Party, I worry about it. It's populism on crack.
Well, I'm not too fond of the health care bill.
The right is really totally released from the responsibilities of governing. They have completely abandoned any pretense of contributing to policy, and it has really freed them up to get their freak flag flying.
Oh Lord, come to our senators. Would you break into their hearts and minds? Arise, oh God, hear.
Can we talk about Sarah Palin's philosophy of governing? Can we talk about Dick Armey's philosophy of regulatory reform? Can we talk about, you know, the prayer cast against health reform, asking for a theocracy in this country so that God can stop health reform if votes can't?
On September 12, 2009, the right-wing Tea Party movement held its biggest rally of the year in Washington.
Do the right thing or you are fired!
A force that didn't exist before inauguration, it has emerged as Obama's most vocal opposition.
You people look like the cavalry to me.
In U.S. media, this movement is usually portrayed as a spontaneous revolt. This rally was hosted by FreedomWorks, a conservative pressure group co-founded by a longtime Republican, Dick Armey, 18 years in Congress, 7 as Republican House Leader.
All of a sudden, there's been a national uprising in America of real citizens, this grassroots uprising that's been precipitated largely out of fear of where Obama will take us on health care.
Much of that so-called grassroots uprising has been organized right here in the FreedomWorks offices.
You give us too much credit.
Well, I don't think you want it because you want to be the invisible hand here. You were a main organizer of the September 12th demonstration. You admit that.
September 12th demonstration, our organization got the permits, set the stage, and so forth. But the 800,000 people that got here individually, separately, on their own hoof, at their own initiative.
Or 65 or 70,000, depending on who you believe.
Depending on who you believe.
Freedom's for everybody, not just for a select few.
And when people are in despair, that's where the rage springs forth from. So how is he going to, what I will call, anesthetize that anger and that rage and that despair without delivering real resources to those people, which could tangibly change their opinion?
And God bless America!
There are two political battlegrounds in U.S. politics. One is in the musty backrooms of Washington, where lobbying shapes legislation, powerful interests struggle over policy. The other is out in the crowded atmosphere of public debate. Here, it's all about storylines, political narratives that are constructed and repeated until they acquire the force of truth. This past year, that battleground has been dominated by one force. On an average day in America, Fox News has more viewers than its rivals, CNN and MSNBC, combined. It made an estimated $700 million last year. Fox has used its power to create a storyline about Obama that has defined much of the year's debate. The network declined to speak to us for this story, but its programming speaks for itself.
Why wouldn't President Obama release his birth certificate?
America is sick and tired of being sick and tired of lies and corruption and flushing our country down the toilet for their power.
They're marching as Americans. The silent majority is silent no more.
The specter of death panels hovering around it.
We're mad as hell, and we're taking back our country.
American leaders do not bow to leaders of other countries.
Is Barack Obama a socialist?
Socialist.
Socialist. Socialism.
This is what Chairman Mao did, Laura.
Oh, my God.
This is like Max Headroom.
I think Fox News plays an incredible role, which is interesting that one news organization has become so dominant in America's understanding of their society.
In the White House and
the success of Fox News in defining Obama as an extreme leftist has distorted the political conversation in the U.S., creating a gap between perception and actual policy.
His fundamental purpose in seeking the presidency was to redistribute income. He's not been shy about saying so.
I would say he's half right, because he is a straight income redistributor, right? But I think he's got the trajectory backward. Right?
I mean, he and George W. Bush presided over the biggest transfer of wealth from the have-nots to the have in the history, perhaps, of this government.
Because the truth of the matter is, he isn't that much different than many other presidents who have preceded him, and that's not a disparagement of the presidents who preceded him. It's really a commentary on the kind of economic system we developed, and the president is an exponent of an economic system. He never pretended that he was going to be any different. People just read it into him. So I say, well, we have to look at ourselves before we look at Mr. Obama.
As the first year of the Obama era draws to a close, it's clear that the tendency to project on this president continues. On the right, the inflated, sinister Obama grows larger and larger. For many of his supporters, disappointments on healthcare, Afghanistan, and Wall Street have not yet destroyed the idea that a more progressive president will still emerge. But that projection of Obama is beginning to break down, colliding with the reality of his record.
Leaders do represent our aspirations and our reflection of what we hope the nation will be. And when it doesn't work out that way, and the image starts to dissolve, and we're looking not at a screen but at a mirror, we suddenly come to a conclusion that we were really looking at our aspirations all along.
I don't think I'm wrong. I actually do believe that he's a fundamentally decent man. I actually don't believe that he has been co-opted or bought out. And so for me and people like me, I think that this is still an exercise in hope.
I still believe we can do great things.
When Obama came into power, he had inspired so many people that one could imagine one of two scenarios.
That is our character.
In one case, he could use those great communication skills to invigorate democratic participation and address and face down an elite agenda and make very constructive change.
Because that's who we are. That is our calling.
The alternative was he uses his great skills to anesthetize and mollify the population on behalf of the elite agenda.
And that here and now, we will meet history's test.
Many people at the one-year point think vis-a-vis healthcare, financial reform, and energy, he's largely done the latter.
Thank you. God bless you. And may God bless the United States of America.
You hear people say, well, they're disillusioned. Well, it's okay to be disillusioned. That means that we are free of our illusions so that we can look at things as they are and look at people as they are. We did not elect the Wizard of Oz. We elected a President of the United States.